Here's how Christians falsely use the word Lucifer as a name for their devil. First, let's look at where the word Lucifer actually originates from. The word Lucifer originates directly from the Latin, and it's from the root word lus, which means light. It's actually where we get the term lucent from. Like lucent lights. For example, you can walk into B&Q and find lucent lights. The Christian translators use mostly the original Hebrew Masoretic text to translate from when translating into English, but when translating Isaiah 14:12, he copied from the Latin Vulgate, a famous Latin translation of the Hebrew scriptures translated by the early church father Jerome. The circulating Christian Greek translations were already so corrupt and deliberately altered to appear Christological, so he committed to a more faithful translation. Isaiah 14:12 in a Christian translation reads, "How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning, how you are cut down to the ground, you who weaken the nations." A more accurate translation reads, "How are you fallen from heaven, O shining one, son of dawn, cut down to the ground, you who weaken the nations." There's nothing wrong with the Latin translation, but when the Christian translator translated it into English, he decided to keep the Latin word, and he even capitalized it to deceive you into believing it's about some devil. Let's look at what the chapter actually says. It's clearly about the king of Babylon, with Isaiah using poetic language to convey his destruction. The shining one, son of dawn, is the planet Venus, symbolically used to describe the king of Babylon. The bright morning star, or planet Venus, dominates the sky in the morning. But as the sun rises, it disappears, just like the king of Babylon disappeared. He thought he could be like God. Above all, just like those who tried to build the Tower of Babel to raise up their own name. Before we read over the full chapter, first, look at verse 16, 4 verses after verse 12. It's still referring to the shining one, or Latin, Lucifer, when he is brought down. That is the king of Babylon. Verse 16. Those who see you will gaze at you and consider you, saying, "Is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook kingdoms, who made the world as a wilderness and destroyed its cities, who did not open the house of his prisoners?" It's a man, the king of Babylon, clear as day. The beginning of the chapter even begins by telling the nation Israel to recite this poem to the king of Babylon, not some devil. Verse 12 is still part of the poem, describing the downfall of the king of Babylon. This is how most Christians read their Bible. They have selective reading, ignoring the full, real message of the prophets for one verse that their pastor pulled out of context and twisted in an attempt to validate Christianity's false doctrine and baseless theology. It's baseless indeed. That's exactly why they need to play around with the holy Jewish scriptures and corrupt them in their translations, the biggest fraud in history. And because it's so big, many Christians will remain in denial and ignorance, following the crowd, regardless of the truth. Dualism is a pagan concept where one believes there are two opposing forces, good and bad, God and the devil. They say the devil is the prince of this world and that he fell from heaven. It's based on that passage in Isaiah that they ripped out of context and tried to force into the text. They did the same thing in the book of Ezekiel about the king of Tyre. I'll save that for another video. There is only one force, and that's the God of Israel. That's monotheism, not dualism, or polytheism where you believe in more than one God. Believing in more than one God is idolatry. It means you believe that God isn't the all-powerful, all-knowing God of the universe. Isaiah 45:7, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Jeremiah 17, verse 7, Blessed is he who trusts the Lord, whose trust is in the Lord alone. Here is the full chapter of Isaiah 14, so you can understand it better in its context.